All right, so this episode is going to be on mental health. I would say, especially during times like this, but I'm yawning, just got up. So, anywho, I would say during times like this, but there's need to be a mental health check every single day, just not during these particular times. So, as y'all know, today is November. Obviously, it's the 6th of November to be exact. So, let me go ahead and turn my... Okay, I put everything on Do Not Disturb because people is ignorant. Anyway, so yeah, November 6th, Friday. If people follow me on Instagram, I've been said that, but not said, but basically I did say, just made predictions of who the president's going to be. So if you want to know the predictions that I made, follow me on Instagram at Creeyeh, Creeyeh, and go straight to my IG TV. And it's my phone cover, which is a lion. Click that video, you will see the prediction that I made 2 days ago. Almost 3 days, actually. So, and I'm quite sure people thought I was lying, like they always do. But it's obvious who the president is going to be. So I'm not going to too much talk about that. I'm probably make a different video about the election. So I'm not going to say much about that. I'm just going to go straight to mental health. So the reason why mental health is important is because without your mental health, you're screwed. You're really screwed. Your mental is the key to your functioning with everything. And I'm going to go to my notes, some stuff that I saved. Like I said in the previous video, I am a hoarder when it comes to knowledge. I hold on to a lot of information. And people be like, wow, why you haven't posted this? Why you haven't shared this? Well, 9 out of 10 people don't listen to me. So I just keep all the information for myself. I want to talk about fear-mongering because that ties in with mental health. And I'm going to tell you why. There's a lot of deception going on. Deception can cause fear, depending on how it's manipulated to the public. Humor. Let me use comedians for an example. If you want to tell the truth, I know y'all heard that old saying that if you want to tell the truth, put it in a book, because most people don't read. Well, also, if you want to tell the truth and be vulgar about it, put it in comedy. People are going to laugh it through, but the wise is going to see through those laughters. So, like I said, a lot of propaganda, a pro-propaganda, associations, it's just reputations, or repetitive acts and words being displayed. Religion has a big part of mental health. Basically, religion controls a big part of a person's mental health who is not aware of the purpose of religion to begin with. So, I'm going to read a quote. Fear always works to influence the population when the population is unknowledgeable. Now, the original post said uneducated, but I don't use that term because educated is another term for indoctrination. And I'm against indoctrination because to indoctrinate something is to switch and change words around. That's not cute for your own personal gain. Now, cognitive dissociative. I don't know how to pronounce this word, so I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to read this quote instead. If you never saw The Matrix, there's a guy in The Matrix. His name was Agent Smith, if I'm not mistaken. So he represented the everyday person's mind who can't handle truth. It's a biological brain mechanism or machinism called cognitive dissonance. I hope I'm pronouncing that word right. Where the truth is too hard to handle. So a person's mind shuts out all contradicting information. That's why he said, I don't want to remember anything. Knowing the truth about the world was too heavy for him. He reverted to his lower self, wanting fame and riches, leaving his wisdom and understanding, which I would say comprehending. I don't use the term understanding. So he left his comprehension behind. A lot of y'all reading this won't accept the information regarding religion because it contradicts your programming, which is okay, as long as you heard it if you meant to get it. So that person misspelled that, but I get what they were saying. If you heard it and you accept it, then it was meant for you. If you heard it and you accept it, well, if you heard it and reject it, then you neglecting truth, basically. So his name is not Agent Smith. Let me go and look up the characters of the Matrix right quick. Because Agent Smith is the one that formed himself and other people. And let me see. Or I should say characters rather. Because I'm going to find this out right quick. Let's find this out. Okay, it's popping up. Yeah, so it wasn't Agent Smith. His picture should pop up because he was very known in this movie. He's the one that portrayed Morpheus. Cypher, that's his name. His name was Cypher. The character name was Cypher. So, Morpheus, he portrayed Morpheus by telling Agent Smith their location of Zion, and he traded in the truth for this propaganda matrix lifestyle that we live in. So check that movie out if you never watched it, or if you have watched it and never comprehended, watch it now and see if you gain a different comprehension about the movie concept rather. So all this ties into mental health because, like I said, your mental state is the most powerful weapon you have. And if it's messed with, if it's tampered with, you really don't have nothing to stand on but someone else's mentality. And that's not cute. That's very dangerous. And if anyone going to protest about anything, I would say don't protest at all. You need to start boycotting, which a lot of people is not willing to do, certain organizations, especially that's dealing with the communication field, mass communication to be exact, because that is where our mental state is attacked the most. We speak of depression, we speak of anxiety, we speak of so many things that affect the mental, but we speak of the effects, but we fail to speak on the cause of those effects. So a lot of people, that's why I mentioned the Matrix. That's why I started off talking briefly about the election, not too much about it, because I might make a separate podcast. I'm going to actually wait on who they elect. Notice I said they and not we. Message is people, a lot of people, because I'm not going to say everyone, a lot of people speak on mental health, but they don't dig deep into the root of it. There's a lot of people out here who want money, power, respect. There's even a song about it. Very few want control of their own mental state. That's why it's so easy to manipulate one's mind. Because that's not something, sadly, that's not something we label as a goal. Is to make sure our mental state is healthy. That's not a goal for a lot of people. A lot of people want to make sure their physical state is perfect. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But where's the balance? If your mental state is not in good condition, your physical state is temporary. Getting pleased. But your mental state is getting neglected. That's a big issue. I just woke up, y'all. Like, I have a busy day today, and I was supposed to do this. Not this episode in particular, but a episode last week, and I didn't. Obviously because of depression. But I'm pushing through today because I really wanted to talk about mental health. I see so many people affected by what's going on in this current time. And it's crazy that a lot of people focus is on the wrong things. It's on the wrong things. This country that I'm in, that I call Turtle Island, I don't call it by its colonized name. Yeah, the rest of you, everyone else can call it America. I'm going to call it by its original name, Turtle Island. The audacity to call this state United States of America. Ain't nothing united about this divided country, colonized country. But okay, to each his own. It's crazy. That's how I can sum it. Over the past few weeks, I'm doing more observing than anything. And since we have 2 more months, but then the year 2020, and I'm counting restaurant. Because the restaurant New Year is January 1st, obviously. I don't go by that, but that's a different topic, a different discussion. Anywho, so we have 2 more months within the restaurant year. So I'm going to be determined by tapping into all things taboo that came across my grasp of attention. Why? Because I'm feeding my mental health. That's why. And when I speak of taboo, I'm speaking of things that were hidden or forbidden to me. I grew up where people say, don't go off wondering in regards of religion, because you're going to find information that's going to stray you away from God. First of all, if the word is strong as I say it is, it shall not be moved. So what's the worry? See, it's the programming, it's the mental effect behind a lot of things that people say. And they put their worries and their projections upon me as if I'm supposed to abide by them. But they manipulate and say you're supposed to abide by God. Who is it really benefiting though? Is it benefiting God or you? For me to abide by the words that's coming out your mouth. Self-discovery is the best discovery you can come across, especially if you want to go on the journey of healing your mental state. You cannot You can walk around in life having any and everybody else feeding your mental state. But you're going to be miserable in the process. Because what if these people vanish and it's just you left, and who's going to feed your mental state? It all boils down to you, right? We all have individualities for a reason. There are some things meant for us and us alone as individuals. Our mental journey is one of those things. We are supposed to have a personal relationship with the Almighty. Now, I said in previous episodes, I don't know which episode it was, probably drama, but my Almighty is AliYah. And I didn't forget, I'm still going to make that episode so people can comprehend or just get a better perception of who I glorify. I don't say worship. Worshiping is not a bad thing. It just depends on who you're worshiping. And it all connects to mental health. It all connects to mental health. If you're going to glorify or worship someone or something, make sure it's beneficial to your mental health. You shouldn't be following something that's damaging your mental state. If it is, then you need to reevaluate. Your surroundings, what you're feeding yourself mentally, or if you're actually feeding yourself. One thing I discovered this year is a lot of people follow belief systems because it soothes their mentality. They use it as escapism to not face certain things. A lot of people look at life, the depths of life is too much to handle, so they try to avoid it by abiding or adapting or just becoming attached to other people's mentality, other people's reality, rather than their own. That's why a lot of people are afraid to be alone. And that alone is a very dangerous state to be in mentally. Very dangerous. That's why it's important to me to relinquish all the programming that I had from birth to now needs to be reevaluated, and there's a cause for a cleansing, a detox. And I've been doing that the whole 2020. I started off not knowing that's how my journey will be. But surprise, surprise, the best experiences in life is surprises. It stimulates the brain too. So much. It's so much going on. Excuse the stomach growling. Like I said, I just woke up and I'm hungry already. But anyway, see. There's so much I want to say, but I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to defeat the purpose of this particular episode, because there's so much to be said about mental health. A few things I will say though is be careful of who you're listening to, why you're listening to them, who you're following, whether it be in social media or real life, or just who you look up to, who you influenced by, your reasonings behind everything. Question everything. The main thing you should question is yourself. Why are you attracted to this? Why are you attracted to that? Why you dislike this? Why you dislike that? Question everything. But the questioning should start within before you can question what's going on externally, because there's so much to discover, there's so much to reveal, there's so much to unravel. The reason why there are so many things hidden, because there's so many things that's been neglected. It hurts the mental state more than any other state to neglect. There's no measurement to knowledge. There's no measurement to experience. We will forever experience even during our transcendence. But when we've been fed false information, a paradox, propaganda, all type of foolishness, we've been fed all this poisoning, it caused more than just an effect on the mind, but it caused a whole different algorithm. There's a lot of NPCs out here. I'm going to do a whole, I know y'all tired of me saying, I'm going to do a whole episode on this, an episode on that. But it helps me in my remembrance when I play these episodes back. I'm like, oh, I did say I was going to do that. Let me go ahead and do that now then. So don't mind my repetitiveness in regards of what I say I'm going to do. It's just to help me to remember. So I'm going to talk about NPC in a whole different episode. And NPC is a non-player character. So for those who are not game fanatics, I'm not a game fanatic, but I ran across someone who is or was. I don't know where he's at with this addiction, if it's an addiction anymore. But anywho, I learned a few things from someone about NPC, and I had to further look up information about it. So like I said, NPC is not a non-player character. That's the acronym behind NPC. And basically what an NPC is, for those who are not game fanatics, it's when you play a video game, or have you ever played a video game, like Grand Theft Auto, if I'm not mistaken, that's the pronunciation. Like I said, I'm not the best with pronunciations. I used to have really bad speech impediment, and I'm quite sure it came from anxiety. It really did. I would freeze up when it comes to saying something where I would say it perfectly in my head, but when it comes to saying it externally, I'm always in fear that I'm not going to say it right, and always expecting a reaction that I don't want from people. And that's a big issue that I need to face with. But anyway, back to the NPC. Grand Theft Auto. So you doing whatever you're doing to get the car, to get whatever you want out of that game. But have you ever played a game, and in that game you going into the grocery store, and the person behind the cash register say something. You leave out that store, you go back in the store, and they say the exact same thing. And it just becomes repetitive. You go out the store, go back in the store, they say the exact same thing. How you doing? How's your day? You leave, go back. How's you doing? How's your day? Like, that's an NPC. An NPC is a person that's programmed to follow suit with the same script over and over and over and over and over again. I can use another example that don't even have to do with gaming. Look at where we're at now with the election. All votes matter. Vote or die. Vote or die. Vote or die. They say the same thing every 4 years. There's nothing new. And they always vote for, if it ain't Democrats, it's Republicans. Democrats and Republicans. Democrats and Republicans. See how repetitive and robotic that is? As if there wasn't any other candidates. You have an independent party. Why that party never elected elected or selected. It's always neglected. There's even there's another party. I don't. It's called. Is it labeled as other party? That's a perfect example of NPC, non-player characters. You don't have a mind outside of programming. If programming was taken away, a lot of y'all would be crash dummies. Y'all would crash mentally. Y'all wouldn't know what to do. Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. At this point, you're mockingbirds. Y'all see the mental effect that has? To me, NPC is just a branch of MK Ultra. Yeah, I said it. MK Ultra. I know a lot. Like I said, I'm a hoarder of information. Sometimes I say knowledge. It's in the same bracket. I know more than what I present. Let me just put it that way. I know more than what I present. After discovering what NPC is, I've been very conscious of what I say, why I say it, and where I get it from. A lot of people don't fact check. Y'all should really follow me on my Instagram because I really be hitting out a lot of things. There's two forms of knowledge. You have conceptual knowledge and then you have insensual knowledge. Insensual knowledge is equivalent to things that are taboo, things that are hidden. It's not the type of knowledge that's been promoted within the overall population. I wouldn't even say overall, I would say the general public. Because I'm quite sure the minority intensive dynamic has and embraced those things that are taboo, but to the general public it's a foreign language. It's two forms of knowledge. I learned that when I took my research method course, my junior year in college. It's very, very, very important to know the difference between those two. And how you learn the difference between those two, fact check, question everything. There's a method behind everything, including knowledge. A lot of people feel like just because they have a certain amount of knowledge, they are the most intelligent person ever. And it's like, knowledge don't make you intelligent if you're not using the right method. But see, when your brain has been stimulated with so much false information, you would disregard anything that is a contradiction to what you know. Instead of neglecting, you should question not only what you know, but what's been presented, and measure and see what outweighs what. Here's the thing about truth. I say purity over truth. I'm more of a purity type of person. Here's the thing about the difference between purity and contamination. Purity cannot be moved. For purity is too heavy for any one of our measures, for any one of our weights that we carry. Purity cannot be moved. If you want to know what the difference between a lie and the truth hold weight. The lie is as light as a feather. it tosses here and fro, there and fro, whatever, however you want to put it. The truth cannot be moved. You can have a conversation with someone and it wouldn't necessarily turn into a debate or a heated conversation, because if anything, the person would change the conversation or exit from the conversation when truth is presented and it's heavy. Truth is always heavy. That's why people say the truth hurt because it really does. A lot of people cannot handle the truth. They became so comfortable with the lie that they are not willing to accept anything that contradicts what they know once again. So when it comes to the difference between purity and contamination, you can't argue with purity. You can be naive and deny it, but you won't have something to measure it with. And that's another thing. Purity cannot be measured. I can sit here and have a conversation with someone and tell them why politics is one of the biggest propagandas there is besides religion. And a person that is not aware of the information that I have and the method that is used, they would confuse to carry on with the conversation. And if I was wrong about a few things, they'll stick around with the conversation and argue. If that person is argumentative or logical, it's equivalent. It's in the same bracket of terminology. People it goes back to the Matrix. People are so comfortable with the lie that they will fight or even kill just to make sure that lie stands firm. It's crazy what type of world we live in. And it's not the world itself that's the problem. It's the people within the world. The world is perfectly fine the way it is. We are the ones that need some work, that needs to we all should be grateful that the Almighty exists, because if it weren't for the Almighty, of course we wouldn't exist. However, there would be no purity without the Almighty. I should be grateful that purity will forever exist. There's hope, basically. There's hope. There's a lot of determination that's going on. But for every bad situation, there's good. It can be flipped. Like Pennsylvania and Georgia today, been flipped. Democrats win. Anywho, and for those who's wondering, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. Yeah, I don't play those games. Once you learn the game, you have the decision to continue to be a part of that game or an observant of the game. I observe it for the entertainment purpose. It's like watching a football game or a basketball game. Who will win, the Lakers or the Miami Heat? Who will win? That's how politics is. It's a game. It's a game. But anywho, back to mental health. That's what that's what I am. I'm not going to say we. My main goal from here on out is to make sure my mental health is in a good condition. Before I check anything else, I need to make sure that my mental health has been nourished, that it's been protected, that it's been cleansed, and that it's been detoxed. If I'm going to have any routine, that routine needs to be beneficial to my mental health. Because a lot of people is under a routine, a lot of people is under a script that was not designed from experience. It was designed from programming. And a way to know the difference is to examine oneself. Compare your childhood to your presenthood. If you was freer as a child than you are now as an adult, you need to detox. You need to reevaluate. Our youngest self is just a reflection of what freedom feels like. A lot of us during children were oppressed internally before externally. And when I say internally, I'm talking about inside the home. From our parents before we even went to school, before we even went to religion, till we even went to just stepped out in the world overall. A lot of us, not everyone, was oppressed. Do that comparison. And if you happen to be a child listening to this, don't let no one oppress you. Oppression feels like fear, basically. Oppression feels like fear. Someone putting fear in you. Don't do this, don't do that. And they don't give you a reasoning of why you shouldn't do it. They just tell you don't, or there's going to be a consequence. I feel sorry for the younger generation. Because what's needed for them was skipped through the previous generation. The previous generation didn't have it, so I'm kind of babbled on how this new generation is going to be led on a straighter path when the previous generation was led astray. It's going to take more than me to it's going to take more than me to be a light within the dark rather than the dark within the light. It's going to take more than me. Although it's going to take more than me, the little old light that I do have, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to let it shine. I'm not going to dim my light just to please the artificialness that's going on within this world system that we living in. So my message to the young people that may be listening to this, to my podcast, is be free at all costs. I'm going to give an example on that. I was telling my auntie that when I was younger, I used to sing all the time. And when I say younger, I'm talking like since a baby to 8 years old, 9, 10. I used to sing all the time. And my mom used to always say, "Shut up. Don't nobody want to hear that." Probably would even curse me out too. Ain't no probably about it. She did, actually. Yeah, just curse me out. Get aggravated. Like, just shut up. Kill my little dreams. I can't really blame her because it's what I allowed. But then again, I was unaware that I was allowing it at that age. At such a young, fresh, vulnerable age. That's the perfect timing to oppress someone. To create that stumbling block. So as a 24-year-old, I don't sing. I haven't sung in years. Like I said in the first episode of this podcast, I hate the sound of my own voice. Just not my speaking voice, but singing voice as well. And it all goes back to my childhood, to when I was a kid, and my mom just didn't want to hear me sing. I'm like, wow, if I got that reaction out of her, ain't no telling how many other people would say that exact same thing. So my message to any parent that may be listening to this, don't do that. Let your child express themselves. Even if they can't sing, get them a singing coach. Put them in singing lessons. Why would you stun your child talent? Why would you stun your child growth? Why would you do that? Because you're selfish. Because yours was stunned. So you want to pass down that transgenerational trauma to your child. Is that what it is? So what I would say to parents, don't stun your child growth. Don't oppress your child. It's bad enough the world system, agents to the elites, is going to try and attempt to do it. Don't be a part of that foolishness. Stand against it, if anything. If your child like to draw and they're not the best drawer, bring them around people who are. Tell them to keep going and they will become that. I'm not going to say no names, but there's a singer that's been out for years, since the 90s. When they was a kid, they didn't sound all that good. And when I say kid, I'm talking young, like they weren't even a teenager yet. They didn't sound all that good, but they parent always encouraged them to keep going. They got them in singing lessons. They got them around the best of the best, if not the best, people who was close to it. And eventually that person became one of the best singers that ever stepped a foot in this industry today. All because their parent did not kill their ambition, kill their talent, kill their growth within their gift that they have. Don't be an Agent Smith. Just not parents, but people in general. Don't tell a person what they're not good at or what they can't do. If you're not going to help them, then stay away from them. Because you're either going to be an enhancement or a burden. We have enough burdens as it is. We don't need the extra burdens. Save the foolishness. If you're going to oppress anything, oppress yourself. Don't oppress anyone else. That's selfish, is ignorant. And you become part of the problem when you do stuff like that. I'm going to say this as clear as possible. Your mental health your mental health is a key. Your mental health is the key to healing, or the ability to heal others. You can't heal anyone else if you can't heal yourself. You can't. Matter of fact, some people can. It can become draining though. You help so many other people, but you fail to help yourself. You will eventually crash. I know a few people like that. I was one of those few people. I'm always good at helping other people, but couldn't seem to help myself in certain cases. That's probably why I got so burnt out mentally. That's why it's important for me to take breaks. It's important for me to not be on social media like that. And what I do requires for me to be on social media, because apparently if I'm not on social media, I lose followers. Like people are like, oh, whatever. You're not active like that. And it's like, I don't care. I didn't create social media for the followers anyway. I'm an open book with closed remedies. So I use social media as a public diary. And I use it as examination of growth, especially when I look through my memories. I'm like, oh, look where my state of mind was at then compared to where it's at now. Oh my goodness, the growth. So that's what I use social media for. I use social media as a mirror to grow, to challenge myself to grow. We should all check our intent. Our intent can help us extend our mental health. It really can. What's your purpose behind everything that you do, everything that you say? Tap into your intent. It's very important. Those without intent is bent into someone else's reality. It is what it is. Ain't no other way around it. So yeah, I don't be on social media like that. And it's very important for me not to. Because it could become draining to an extent. You're looking at other people. I want to say programming. Maybe that's the word I'm going to use. It's a lot of NPCs out there. So it's important for me to take a break sometime. Because it can become draining or very testful. Like, I don't know if testful a word, but I'm going to make it a word. Just especially for me, saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, especially with the election. Like, my mental be needing a break, and it gets a break. Because it's either have a mental breakdown or have a mental detox. I'd rather have a mental detox, okay? So I try my best. I make an effort to make sure I take time out for myself. To meditate first and foremost. And I want to say this. Do what's beneficial for your mental health. Whether people are against it or not. Because I have a few people that insinuate that something wrong with me because I'd rather meditate than pray. There's nothing against prayer. I don't mind praying. Like, I tell people all the time, question everything. I'd be a hypocrite to say prayer is not the way to something. Prayer is the way to getting your questions answered. You have to ask the questions first in order for it to get answered. But one thing that I learned is that when I just shut up and listen, like, for example, I went straight to doing this podcast, didn't eat nothing. That actually is a perfect example. But before I forget what I'm going to just say it. Your mental health. No, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Prayer and meditating. Okay, I'm going to use this as an example. That's why I paused. So, I could sit here and say, what I'm going to eat today? That's a question I'm asking within myself. So that's like a prayer. That's similar to praying, because when you're praying, you're asking, you're questioning something, you're wondering. Some people worry, that's why they pray. Especially when it comes to health conditions, physical health conditions or whatever. Like someone may be hospitalized because they may have torn a muscle or something, and they can say, pray for me, because they in worries of their health condition. But when it comes to meditating, you're taking time out to silence yourself and to reflect on what's going on, what's happening. That's the difference between the two. And I know I mentioned it in another episode. I just don't know which episode. But one thing I will say is that people would tell you constantly, based off their perception, based off their way, what to do and what not to do. But they have to be mindful within themselves that just because it works for you, that don't mean it's going to work for someone else. Stop trying to put your projections upon other people's life, because that's called programming. And we have enough of that. We don't need no more programs. It's enough as it is. So when it comes to mental health, heal in the best way you know how. Become or remain a student. Always be open to learning. Know that there's no measurement to knowledge. By that being said, don't assume that you know everything, because you will not leave this earth. You didn't come in this earth knowing everything, and you're not going to leave this earth knowing everything. But one thing I can guarantee and say for certain is that you're going to learn something that's going to be a stepping stone for you to learn something else. So in regards to mental health, stay aware of what's been fed and who's feeding your mental health. Because one's lack of substance is another person control to take over your will. I'm going to say that again. One person lack of substance is another person control to take over your will. All right, so my stomach is telling me, shut up. I'm hungry. I don't care what you're talking about no more. I didn't care about what you're talking about when you started. So I'm going to go ahead and eat, because my stomach is attacking me right now. So I have more to talk about. So stay tuned. I can't promise y'all when the next episode going to be, but just know there's going to be another episode. I'm not giving up, even though I feel like giving up on this podcast, but I'm going to stay consistent with this, even if I have to fight my way through it. But yeah, so that's just a mental check. Oh, let me say that. I'm so glad I said that. I can only encourage myself. I can try to encourage other people, but they have to be willing to accept it. There's a willingness that must be attached to that. So I'm going to say this, and I promise I'm going to eat. Okay, stomach? You ain't got to keep talking, okay? You ain't got to keep crying, rather. I know y'all like, this girl is crazy. She talking to her stomach. Okay, no. So I'm going to leave on this note. In order to improve your mental health, challenge yourself to have a mental check every day, whether you wake up in the morning or before you go to bed. Just have like this mental self-check. Make sure your mental state is good, and if it's not good, meditate. Find out where it's not good at and why. So yeah, just have a self-mental check-in with yourself every now and then, or every day, whatever works for you. Because that is what's working for me, and this was improving my mental health, my mental state, my mentality overall. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Until next time, I'm out.